I'm going to try to make a video about this timing belt guide. It's that item right there, Subaru part, costs about 10 bucks. And there it is up there. It goes back on this top of the belt. You see where it bolts down there and on the other side too. Anyway, you need it when you put an automatic engine into a standard or manual transmission vehicle, and I'm going to try to explain why this is necessary. On this van right here, I didn't have that on. People told me I had to put it on. I didn't do it, and my timing belt skipped a couple teeth, and it caused a lot of trouble. Okay, I'll try to explain how this problem happens. Okay, here's your timing belt right here, and this is the tensioner, and it pivots about that point right there, and it shoves this idler roller that way downward. The direction of the crank is this way when the engine's running. Okay, and so the timing belt comes down here, up over the crank pulley, kind of down into this valley here, and then up and around the cam pulley, right? Okay, so the crank's pulling hard on it, and it's, keeping it tight over here, but it's coming over the top of this, and it's a little bit loose in this spot, but the timing belt tensioner pushes down in this loose spot, and it keeps it tight. And so this tensioner here has a pretty heavy spring in there, and it has a damper in it, like a shock absorber that prevents quick movement. It's damped. Okay. So what happens when you park your car and you shut the engine off, but you park it on a hill with the nose up, for example, and you put it in first gear, and let's say your van does not have a good parking brake, or you decided you weren't going to use the parking brake. Leave it in gear so the engine compression holds it on the hill. Okay, well, what happens is, the cylinders, the compression leaks down slowly, and slowly your car is reversing a little bit, and it's turning the engine, that way, backwards, all right? And when it turns the engine backwards, it tensions this here, which is, it pulls against, it tries to shove the tensioner up that way, okay? And that's not normal. And an automatic car cannot do that. Only a manual car, when it's in the wrong gear, or whatever gear that can turn the engine backwards, can do that. And so that's why when you put an engine from an automatic into a manual vehicle, you have to think about that and make sure you have that little guard up on top of there. Okay, I'll show you kind of how this happens here. This stuff is not easy to do with one hand holding the camera, but I'll try. Okay, you see this pry bar? I'm going to put that in on top of the water pump, and where I can push up on the the tensioner. I'll get some leverage here. Okay, you see what I'm doing there? I'm going to push up on this tensioner. So watch the belt start to loosen, and it loosens slowly. See, it's moving slowly because it's damped, and that distance there is increasing. All right, because the tensioner is just kind of oozing upward against its damper. That's how you can skip a couple teeth when you don't have this guard up here, holding that holds. I mean, it presses down. It holds It can't do it now because it's, you know, tip to tip, but it keeps that crank gear engaged with the belt, and it can't get out of time if you have this item. So anyway, point is, if you have an automatic engine in your standard manual trans vehicle, you better buy this part. I mean, this was I think it was $8 at Subaru, and it's not a whole lot of fun to put that in. You got to take it, you know, you got to take it all apart to this level, but you need it. And if you don't have that until that day, you should never put this thing in gear and let the engine hold it unless it's turning the engine in the correct way. So if you're pointed downhill, you put it in first gear. If you're pointed uphill, you put it in reverse gear. Okay, well anyway, that's how this happens, and right now I have a big problem here. Okay, you see that timing mark right there? It comes up hard against the stop. Right there, it's hard against a stop, and this way, hard against the stop right there. And of course, that's got to be the valves, piston hitting the valves. Okay, here's how you check if your engine has a belt guide. Here's the alternator of the engine, and directly below the alternator is screwdrivers pointing at the bolt for the crankcase sensor right there. And I'll get you another view of it down here. Okay. Stick a probe down through the hole right down there, and right below it is that belt guide. So I'll go on over to another engine that's taken apart. Okay, here's another EJ25, and this one here is in like deep shit because of this problem. Okay, so there's the bolt is taken out, and there's the hole, and this is the sensor, of course. And if you just take a screwdriver or something and you poke it down in there, and you can see how it's touching the rubber belt. You can feel that if that's rubber. Whereas if it has this belt guide in here, it's like that, and you poke this probe in there, you can feel it hitting steel. So anyway, if you have a manual transmission, you want to feel steel in there. Okay, I hope that helps.